Hey guys, welcome back to Iron Game Chalk Talk. I'm Ron McKeefery, and today's guest I've had the pleasure of speaking with on numerous occasions. We've typically spoken at conferences together. And I'll tell you, anytime that you go to a conference and you can pull 1, 2, 3 things away, I always feel like it's a successful conference. Whenever I hear Alan Stein speak, I'm able to take 5, 10, sometimes 15 things away. He's one of the most innovative guys I know. He's the head strength coach for Nike Elite, DeMatha Catholic High School up in the D.C. area. He does quite a bit with Nike. He's a consultant for them, does their Jordan Brand All-American Classic, does their Summer Skills Academies. He's a very well. The great thing about Alan is very early on, he made a conscious decision to focus on the high school coach and the high school athlete. And that, that's not always the case in our field. We always want to go for the, the big time college or the pro NBA team. And what Alan did was, I'm going to find the most grassroots level, and then I'm going to make it great. And like I said, I learned something new from him every time I hear him speak. And with this interview, it was no exception. So without further ado, Alan Stein. All right, guys, welcome to Iron Game Chalk Talk. I'm here with Alan Stein. I've known Alan for about 5 years now, and I tell you, he is one of the most innovative guys I know. And we talked before we went on camera here, and in 20 minutes I learned a ton of stuff, and so I know we're going to take a lot out of this. Alan, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. It's great to connect, Ron.
Hey, for the guys that don't know you, kind of talk about how you got it. What motivated you to go into strength and conditioning, and kind of what you're doing now?
Sure. Well, ever since high school, I've had 2 real passions. One is the sport of basketball, and 2 is performance enhancement. And, as a high school player and even as a very low-level college player, I always found that the training and the strength and conditioning was something I had complete control of. I had 100% control over how good a shape I showed up in on day one, and I just always gravitated towards that. And for kids with maybe average athleticism, average basketball talent, I really believe that the training side of things can give them that slight edge, can bump them up a tier, and that's something that I've always fell in love with. And being able to combine basketball with training, I'm very, very thankful that I kind of found my niche.
Now, where are you at now?
I live in Bethesda, Maryland, so I'm right outside of Washington, D.C.
And you're working with DeMatha. You had been with Montrose, and I'll do a whole intro for you. But you've worked with some of the best: Kevin Durant, Stephen Curry. Worked with one of the top high school programs. Who are some of the coaches that have influenced you from either a basketball standpoint or a strength standpoint, and kind of helped you form your philosophy?
Well, I tell you, the list would be vast. I'm so thankful to have worked with and learned from so many coaches, both on the basketball side and on the strength and conditioning side. I know when I first got into the iron game back in college, so this would have been the late 90s, I was really into the high-intensity training, the HIT, Dr. Ken Leisner and Ken Manny, John Philbin, Dan Riley. That was really what piqued my interest, and I started doing a ton of reading and learning from those guys. And then from there, really just broadened my line of thinking and tried to learn from as many different coaches as possible. From a basketball side, I mean, it's unbelievable. Stu Vetter at Montrose was kind enough to help me get my start on the high school level. And then now I work for Mike Jones at DeMatha, who is an unbelievable coach. I learned something new from him every day.
So you've worked with these guys. You worked with some of the best NBA players. You worked with some of the top high school players. You worked with some of the best coaches. Why high school? Why not college or pro?
For a few reasons. One, I actually think I can make more of an impact at the youth and high school level. Certainly from a physical standpoint, because most kids, by the time they're in high school, at least on the basketball side, have never had any type of structured training. So they're almost like a blank canvas, and I have a great opportunity to teach them to do things the right way from the beginning. But I also think I can have a good impact on them, off the court or out of the weight room, because at that age, the teenage years, they're very impressionable. I have an opportunity to be a good role model, to teach them the tenets of success, that will far exceed whatever they do in their basketball careers. It gives me the opportunity to work with a wide range as well. I mean, really not just from a high school, but the reason I've gravitated towards the private sector is I can work with 8 or 9-year-olds one day, or I can work with an NBA player the next day, or I can fly across the country and speak to a group of coaches. I really enjoy the variety, and that's probably what's kept me at this level.
We've talked on the show before about the drastic need or the dire need for a strength coach at a high school level. The liability doesn't change.
Right.
It's one of the reasons why you have strength coaches at the professional level and the college levels, but the liability at the high school level, we've talked before. I've walked into gyms where guys bare shirt, sweating all over the place, no collars on the bars, loaded up one side more than the other, You see the gamut, and I think it's an area that we need to improve upon in the profession.
Oh, absolutely, and it's needed, and it's funny. It's even trickling down. I think there needs to be more structure, even at the youth levels, from a training standpoint. It's a big misconception out there. I think the average parent equates quote unquote strength and conditioning with lifting weights, and they always picture, say, a barbell back squat. So yeah, if they're picturing that their 8 or 9-year-old son or daughter is going to be coming in to do loaded barbell back squats, that might not be the best idea. But I really look at, strength and conditioning is all encompassing. I mean, we're talking about improving every facet of athleticism, primarily movement from the beginning. So, should, in my opinion, 8 and 9-year-olds work on proper movement and being able to skip and run and jump and slide? Absolutely. And I think, if you can find a way to incorporate some of that in, but make it fun so the kids actually enjoy training and enjoy strength and conditioning, then you're setting them up for success at the high school level, then at the college level, and so forth. So, that's one of my major goals, is to get this to start to trickle down so that we're having more of an impact on youth.
No question. I agree 100%. You probably don't know this, but, when we met X number of years ago, 5 years ago, you started that series of the book a week, and you've done such a great job and been such an influence on me. I've always read, but all of a sudden I meet you, you're reading a book a week, 50-plus books a year, and I'm sitting there going, man, I got to get my crap together. So talk a little bit about why you did that. Talk about the importance of continuing education.
Well, I think if you're not growing and you're not getting better, things just get stagnant. And it's funny because, to be honest, in high school and even through college, I couldn't stand reading. And I don't know if that was because it was someone assigned me to read something that I had no interest in. But once I became an adult and realized, I have the freedom to read and learn and watch and listen to anything out there, and I should take advantage of that. And it really, as it doesn't take a ton of time. If you have your priorities in order, you can find 15, 20, 30 minutes a day to read, or now, with internet, you can watch some videos or listen to something. But there's no reason not to subject yourself to something that's going to make you better. I mean, I'm like yourself and the people watching, I'm very dedicated to my craft. I want to be the best basketball strength and conditioning coach I can be. And the only way that I'll ever scratch that surface is if I'm getting better every single day, 365 days a year. I've been doing this for about 12 years now, and I'm confident that I'm going in the right direction, but I'm not even close to where I would like to be, and that's what motivates me. And from a strictly reading standpoint, I read on basketball, I read on strength and conditioning, but I read on business. That's where I'm extremely competitive, is running my own business. And not so much competing against anyone else, but can I have a better year this year than I did last year? Can I grow this segment of my business, by 20 to 30%? And I would say recently, most of my reading is business oriented, because that's certainly my biggest weakness, or at least my area where I feel that I have the most potential to grow, is from a business standpoint.
Well, I know I made a similar switch maybe 2-3 years ago about reading more. What I typically do now is I read one strength and conditioning book, one leadership book, then one business book, and I keep that rotation throughout the year.
That's perfect.
But the business books, what I found is it's made me such a better strength coach.
Yeah.
It's made me think outside the box and come up with different concepts of managing a department or managing players or parents or whatever. And so it's such an important thing to do, is to get outside of your comfort zone. We teach our players to do it all the time. It's the same thing we need to be doing with ourselves.
Exactly.
With basketball players, I've always had this battle internally, because I've never played, I didn't play basketball in high school. I'd never really worked with basketball, but then I found myself managing strength coaches that worked with basketball, and so it's very common, especially at the college level, to get a strength coach that maybe never played the sport, never coached the sport. What are some of the things that they need to be aware of if they're going into a basketball environment?
Well, two things. One, and I think there's pros and cons of both. See, I've been a basketball player my entire life, and I do think that on one hand gives me an advantage because I can walk the walk and talk the talk. But at the same time, I don't bring the fresh perspective that a coach would bring that's worked with another sport. And I think there's extreme value to both of those. As far as basketball players, there's two things I would think about. One, strictly between the ears, they have to understand that the culture of basketball players, or at least most basketball players, is one that they just want to play basketball 24/7. They don't want to train. They don't want to do the strength and conditioning. And you might find a couple, exceptions that do. But as a rule, that's not necessarily what they want to do. So you have to find a way to make sure that what you're doing is first of all, make sure it's purposeful, but make sure it's something that, I don't want to say they have to love it, but if you can get them to buy in and at least somewhat enjoy what they're doing, they'll give you a better effort. So I think the mental approach is really proving to them right from the beginning why this is important and how this will help them be the best basketball player they can be. See, as soon as you can sell a player that what we're going to do here will help you over here, they'll buy in. And then from a physical standpoint, it's like anything else. If I got hired to work with a sport that I'd never played tomorrow, I would watch as much of that sport as possible just to learn the movement patterns, to learn, the physical demands. And, what I found with basketball, there's 6 primary movements that a basketball player goes through every single day that they play. Some of those are going to be the same amongst every sport, but a couple of them are unique to basketball. Obviously, they have to sprint. So does every sport. They have to backpedal. So does every sport. A lot of basketball is lateral movement, is defensive sliding, which I think might happen a lot more in basketball than potentially some other sports. Basketball players have to pivot, which is fairly unique as well. Obviously, there's a lot of jumping and landing, but that's most sports. And then they actually lunge, and this again is one from a variety of different sports. If you take a basketball game and you freeze the frame, if a basketball player grabs the ball and is trying to go around their defender and you freeze that film, they're in a lunge position. A basketball player literally lunges. I know it's done in a split second. They lunge hundreds of times over the course of a practice or a game. So those are really the 6 movements that I want to make sure our players are efficient in moving with. So I think if I was new to the sport, I would want to be well versed in those 6 movements, and I'd want to understand the psyche and culture of basketball, which is training is somewhat secondary. Let's find a way to get the kids to buy in.
Sure. We talked a little bit off camera, but most people know that basketball is essentially a year-round sport. Especially at the high school level with AAU and all the things going on. In college, the same thing. What is a typical, maybe in season, because they're kind of always in season, workout look like?
And right now we are in season at DeMatha. We're in the home stretch of our conference play, and we've got playoffs coming up in 2 weeks. And our goal is to always get in 1 strength workout a week. If we can get in 2, that would be ideal. But that's really dependent on the game schedule. At the high school level, we have to give a day off every 7 days. So now you're talking about 6 days a week of playing or practice. And we've been playing 3 games a week. So now you're down to 3 games. So it's a matter of, can you sneak in a strength workout on 1 or 2 of those 3 practice days? I keep the workouts extremely brief. In season, we tend to do much more body weight stuff than anything else. Our guys can get pretty banged up. You've got sore ankles and knees and backs and hands and so forth. So we want to, be cognizant of that. And we keep the workouts brief. I mean, it might be one or 2 sets of a handful of upper body pushes and pulls and 1 or 2 sets of some usually unilateral lower body work. And we're in and out in 15, 20 minutes. If we can do that once or twice a week, we feel like that'll keep our guys strong. The interesting part, especially at the high school level, is there's a range. We've got a point guard that plays 30 minutes a game 3 times a week, and then we've got the guy that sits next to me at the end of the bench who doesn't play a whole lot, rarely takes his shooting shirt off. Well, over the course of a week, that's a huge range in physical activity. You've got one kid getting in every rep of every game and every practice, and then you've got another kid, who really is doing a lot less from a physical standpoint. So in theory, that kid could handle a lot more volume in his in-season work, and I try to massage that in. Sure. The hard part is telling a kid that doesn't get to play a whole lot, well, you also need to do extra work in the weight room because you're not playing a whole lot. Sometimes that can be a tough sell, but really it's just, hey, Joey, why don't you get a couple extra sets of this? And if you can kind of massage it in and you have a good relationship with your kids, it's usually not an issue.
How does that shift then on the off season? In between seasons, maybe, between high school season and AAU season?
And that's the hardest part because that window has gotten smaller and smaller. If we make a late playoff run and we make it all the way to the championship, AAU literally starts the week after. Wow. So, kids really, no matter how much I beg and plead for them to take a couple weeks off to rest and recover, very few do, and they jump right into the AAU season. And the AAU season is usually a lot more travel. They're playing anytime, anywhere from 6 to 8 games over the course of a weekend. It's a lot. And right. At DeMatha, depending on how well we do in the playoffs, we'll play between 30 and 35 games between December and late February, which is a pretty good schedule. AAU, sometimes they play as many as twice that. They might play 70 to 80 games over the course of the spring. So there really is no traditional off season. So it's a matter of finding balance in where can we fit this in, and it's about prioritizing. The kids that really need a solid off season to get stronger, to get quicker, to get in great shape, I let them know you've got to make that decision. Sure. If you want to be good at anything, as you know, you have to make sacrifices. And if your goal is to put on 15 pounds and get stronger, then you may have to sacrifice playing every single weekend for your AAU team. Right. And sometimes the kids make that sacrifice, and other times they choose not to.
Having seen you coach, and the things that I know about you, player relationships is critical. It's one of those things that you put a lot of emphasis on. It's one of the comments that I always make coaching the 6 inches between the ears, the controller 6 feet below it. Talk a little bit about how you go about forming those relationships.
Well, everything starts with trust. Immediately, and at DeMatha, we're an all-boys Catholic school, 9 through 12. So when kids come in, they're 13 or 14-year-old freshmen that usually have never done any type of structured training. So immediately, I need to build that trust with them, that they trust me, that what I'm going to do with them is safe, that what I'm going to do with them is purposeful, and that what I'm going to do with them will both make them less likely to get injured, but will also improve their performance on the court. As soon as you can get a kid, a basketball player in particular, to understand and make that connect, that perceived relevance, that what they're doing is going to make them a better player, because that's their ultimate goal, is to be the best player they can be, then they'll buy in. And at that point, then you can begin the entire relationship building process and getting to know them off the court and finding out what motivates what kids and what buttons can I push with him to get him to work harder, might be completely different than the kid over here. And, I'm very fortunate in basketball. My job's much easier than yours is with football because I've only got 12 to 15 kids to worry about, whereas you'd have, 70 to 80 guys that you've got to build relationships with. So with only 12 to 15, I can put in that time to learn about every single kid on and off the court and find what it is that really drives them and motivates them.
Sure. Now, I mentioned at the very beginning, another thing that I've always respected about you is how innovative you are. It seems like, every time I go and watch you speak or coach, I'm writing down 15, 20 new exercises.
Thank you.
How do you go about coming up with those things? I mean, is it just sitting back and saying, let's try this? Or is it that you're reaching out to different sites or books or whatever that kind of gives you sparks that interest?
It's a little bit of everything. I've stolen dozens of drills from you, and what I'll do is if I see you do a drill, first thing is I need to know the how and the why behind it. What exactly are you doing? Why are you doing it? And learn everything I can about that drill. And once I feel like I've got a good understanding of why you're implementing it, how you're implementing it, and does that fit the needs of what my kids need to do? Then I immediately start to try and think outside of the box. How can I tweak that drill? Can I tweak the foot position? Could I tweak the way we do this? Could I tweak this? And, turn one drill into 4 or 5 drills. And, the strength game has come a long way in the last 20 to 25 years, but the fundamentals of what it takes to get a kid bigger, stronger, and faster are pretty basic. And I recognize that. And, but I also realize that going back to the psyche of basketball players in particular, that if you're just sticking to a handful of very basic exercises and you don't add a little sizzle to that steak, it runs dry very quick. And for right or for wrong, that's the culture. And instead of trying to buck the culture, I try and go with it. So, hey, we're going to do a handful of very fundamental movements that will get you stronger, but then I'm going to put some window dressing on it, some fun exercises, some fun drills, some things that really look cool. And that last 10, 20% that you can sprinkle on there really gets the kids to buy in. But I study the game of basketball and try to look at new drills. I study from strength coaches like yourself, strength coaches, from any different sport that are doing things to improve athleticism. And then I try to find a way to put a little bit of a basketball spin on it because I think that'll get my kids to buy in a little bit more.
That's that sugar, that spice to keep them dialed in. I agree 100% with that. Variety is so critical. It's one of the principles that I have in my programming as well.
Yeah. Well, and it's as much for me as it is for them.
Sure.
I mean, I'm at a point now that if I go to a clinic and I hear a bunch of speakers, I'm strong enough in my convictions that I'm not going to come back on Monday with a new philosophy. I mean, I've been doing this long enough that I believe what I believe. But if I go hear you speak and I pick up 2 new drills from you or 3 new coaching cues or something, and I write those down, I'm excited to go to work on Monday because now I get to do something new. I get to teach something fresh. I get to do, and that's what keeps it fun for me. And then, if I'm excited and I've got energy and I've got passion, that's going to carry over to the kids. See, if you just go in and do the same thing every single day, then you as a strength coach get bored, then your kids get bored by default. So that's the same reason I'm continuing to read all the time is so that I learn something new. What new twist can I put on my business that gets me up at 5 in the morning and excited to implement it? I just think all of it comes from constantly learning and growing. But the cool part is, I keep a log of all the drills and exercises I do. And I'll go through that periodically throughout the year. And I'll say, man, I haven't done that drill for 3 years. I used to love that drill. I used to do that thing every day for 3 months. It's time to dust it off and bring it back. And it's almost like it's a brand new drill because I haven't done it in so long. So it's, I think as you get involved in this, in the strength coaching game and you've been in it for a while and you have this vast toolbox, it's great to revisit it and take new drills. And sometimes that fresh perspective, if it's a drill I haven't done for 2 years, I'll look at it with fresh eyes now and I can add a tweak. And, you take any basic movement or drill, you can always change feet position. You can always change hand position. If it's some type of agility or reaction drill, that can either be done visually or audio. I mean, there's so many little things that you can always tweak. Right. There's no reason not to keep things fresh.
What a great point. Well, man, as usual, this has been phenomenal. You always bring something new to me. That I can add to my toolbox, like you say, and I appreciate that. And I know the viewers do as well. You have Stronger Team Training, StrongerTeamTraining.com. What are some ways that the audience can kind of keep up with you?
Well, I'm really big into social media, and I'm into social media for a few reasons. One, I think it's a tremendous learning resource. I think if you follow the right people, you can learn a ton. I also think it's a great way to spread your own message and share with others. And I believe coaching is all about sharing, that we should be willing to help each other out and share. And guys that have been in the profession for a while like you, I think is amazing that you take the time to help the young guy that's just getting out of college, really doesn't know the path of the journey. And you've done a tremendous job in sharing that with those kind of guys. Because people have helped us. A lot of people have helped me. And I'm very thankful for that. And even though I'll never be able to pay them back, I can pay it forward to the people coming up behind. And I find social media is a great way to do that. But most importantly, it allows you to connect with people that you probably would never get a chance to meet in person. Someone can follow you on Twitter and they're halfway across the globe. They're in 5 different time zones from you. And it's a way for you to interact and connect and make, our industry even stronger. So I'm really big into Twitter and YouTube. Because I think people are very visual creatures. So anytime I can put something on YouTube that I think is of value to coaches and players, I aim to do that. And that's really it. Twitter is just at Alan Stein, and StrongerTeam.com is the YouTube channel. And I just try to use those as resources to share as many things as possible.
Well, you do a great job with that. I go to your YouTube page all the time.
Thank you.
I truly appreciate you coming on, man. I'll make sure to link up all those things in the show notes.
Awesome.
Make sure you guys go down and click on those. But if you're not following Alan already, make sure you do so, because he's absolutely right. He puts out a great nugget almost daily. So appreciate you coming on, man.
Thank you very much, Ron. I appreciate you.
As usual, you can get to all those links that Alan mentioned, StrongerTeam.com, his Twitter, Facebook, and everything, right below the video here in the show notes. And if you got to Iron Game Chalk Talk by another means, make sure you go to my website, ronmckeefery.com, and sign up over here on the right-hand side to join the mailing list. I put out a lot of good stuff, a lot of good information, try to let you know whenever I have a new blog post out, and just keep you updated with things that I come across. So, and then you can follow all of my social media as well. So, ronmckeefery.com. Thanks for watching another episode of Iron Game Chalk Talk.